Welcome to Tarifa Tower and a new project we're launching today, which is Talk Tarifa. In Talk Tarifa, we would like to do programs. Normally we run our programs in Spanish, but now we'd like to open another sister channel, which will be in English, interviewing very interesting people and people that have a history in El Campo de Gibraltar and Tarifa. And for our first show, I have a very interesting guest who's a very dear friend of mine who visits Tarifa when he can, but also lives in Gibraltar. He is the owner, or his family own, an iconic restaurant in Gibraltar called Sacarello's, and also a company that produces toasted cafe. He has a long history in Gibraltar and a long history in Tarifa, and he's been a good friend of mine for about 20 years. I'd like to introduce to Patrick Sacarello. Welcome, Patrick.
Hi, thanks very much for inviting me.
Well, Patrick, you have, let's say, an iconic restaurant in Gibraltar. How long has that restaurant existed?
It was formed in 1985.
1985. And before that, it was a...
Before, it was the warehouse part of Old Merchant House in Irish Town, which in the 20th century, the family business, which was founded in 1888, became mainly the coffee packaging area, because our original business, family business, B. Sacarello Limited, mainly concentrated on roasting and grinding coffee and selling coffee.
Distribution as well, of course.
Sorry?
Distribution as well.
And distribution all around Gibraltar. And at a time when there was a shortage of coffee in Spain, we actually managed to sell up to 30 tons of coffee a week.
Oh my
when
God.
There was shortage of coffee in Spain.
But outside...
It was taken from Gibraltar by Spanish workers into Spain.
Oh, right, okay. Tell me a little...
I mean, the tobacco contraband from Gibraltar has been known historically.
Yeah.
But at certain times when there was a shortage of coffee in southern Spain,
So you were a coffee contrabandist. You were smuggling coffee.
Well, not directly involved, though my father said anyway. Not directly involved. I mean, the coffee would be bought in Gibraltar by the thousands of Spanish workers.
Wow.
And taken into Spain. Yeah.
Wow. But you had no official distribution. It was all...
That's right, no official distribution.
Wow, okay. So the company...
My grandfather founded the family business in 1888, but he died young, and my grandmother got her two brothers to run it, but they weren't doing a very good job of it, so she pointed at my father, then said, "Look, that's your desk." And my father had to give up his ideas of being an engineer, and the first thing he did was he got rid of the two uncles and the Rolls Royce, the first Rolls Royce in Gibraltar, which they'd convinced my grandmother that business was going well.
And they needed a Rolls Royce. But your father then met and married an Irish woman, which is a curious mix.
That's right. My father, during the Second World War, used to be used by the governor very often, as he liked driving, to drive up to Madrid to deliver documents. So after the Second World War, he continued going to Madrid and to meet some of the friends he'd made. And he, in a cortijo near the Escorial, he in a tienda, bullfighting tienda, he met my mother, who was, the English teacher of the young kids of this very rich family which owned the cortijo.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
my father was thinking of becoming a monk, By then he was 47, so...
Oh, my God. And he had how many children?
4 children, yes.
After 47?
Yeah.
The poor Poor guy, man. That must have been
Poor
awful.
mother, I think.
Poor mother as well. Well, she must have been a bit younger, I would imagine.
Yeah. She was, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was 16 years younger or something.
Yeah. And from there, the family still runs the business, obviously.
Yeah, like most Gibraltarian merchant families, as we're Mediterranean by origin, a lot of us are Italian by origin, from Genoa. The Sacarellos came to Gibraltar in 1815. The first Sacarello got married in the Roman Catholic Cathedral. And, you know, but we're mainly Mediterranean by origin.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
But we're proud to be British because the British have looked after us, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no?
Yeah.
I say that despite being Irish.
And you must feel a little loyalty.
Huh?
You must feel a little loyalty to Spain as well.
Loyalty to Spain?
Not loyalty, but an
affinity. Of course, Gibraltar depends on Spain for its workforce, for our natural enjoyment of open spaces, and you know, and the Mediterranean and Andalusian style of living, which we all love.
Well, oh God, yes, of course. I mean,
I always compare how Spaniards enjoy Miami. They say sort of ambiente latino, you know, sistema americano, you know, for business.
Yeah,
know?
Of course.
And Gibraltar's a bit like that. British laws for business, and which are generally, you know, less bureaucratic than a lot of other European Union.
And Andalusian lifestyle.
And Andalusian or Mediterranean lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I have mixed feelings about. My parents were Irish immigrants, and I grew up in London, obviously, but I never felt particularly British, and I certainly didn't feel Irish. I was sort of in purgatory, if you like, and I've lived in Spain now for 32 years, and I certainly feel a little more Spanish than I do English or Irish. I feel more at home here. If I go back to Ireland or England, I come back to Spain, and I certainly feel more at home here now after all those years. So
yes.
You must feel the same way in being comfortable in Spain. I mean, really.
I always say Gibraltarians were Mediterranean people who are proud to be British. Like the Welsh are Celtic, but I think most of them are proud to be British. But you know, we are essentially a Mediterranean people. And certainly when I studied in public school in England, I became extremely aware that I wasn't English, you know, extremely aware.
That's curious.
I think at our prep school, the headmaster had a system for good table manners and bad table manners. You went up sitting different tables. Unfortunately, the Gibraltarians, we ended up with a table called the Pig's Table.
Oh my God.
With the Maltese, which just shows... which shows our Mediterranean.
There were other Gibraltarian children in the college.
Oh yeah, a lot of Gibraltarian merchants, business people, because the standard of education in Gibraltar wasn't so good then. Send their kids.
So you must,
to Catholic public schools in England.
You actually lived through the whole border closed, and that whole.
When I came back from 9 years of public school in England, I then had a few years in London when I did a degree, and eventually I came back to Gibraltar. That's right, and lived a few closed border years in Gibraltar, which were dreadful, really dreadful.
I mean, people have forgotten about this, but the border was closed for 13 years, I believe, and to come to Spain, you had to go to Morocco, and then from Morocco to Spain. From Gibraltar to Morocco, Morocco to Spain, which is extraordinary. That's in the past, and they've changed. Tarifa and Gibraltar have changed a great deal over the years. I mean, we've known each other for 20 years, and I've been in Spain for 32 years. I've been in Tarifa for 32 years, and I see changes that are positive and changes. I think generally all of the changes are positive, and I certainly see in Gibraltar a different place. It's cleaner. It seems to be getting it seems to be better organised than it was 30 years ago. How do you feel about
Well,
it?
Gibraltar, yes, has improved for the good generally, enormously, because the close border years were particularly difficult for young couples, because Gibraltar had a big housing problem,
Right.
And young couples very often couldn't afford to buy, private property, and so a lot of them lived with their in-laws and didn't have any privacy, so they'd go and make love over the weekends in their cars on the upper rock,
Yes. With the monkeys.
with the monkeys watching through the window.
Well, actually, they're right.
The monkeys
They're right.
watching.
They're right. Be careful.
The ape. Sorry, the ape.
Uh,
Yep. So Gibraltar had a big social housing problem, but with the big border opening, there was a big sort of construction program in the harbour, reclaiming land.
Right.
And social housing was built with a famous sort of 50-50 system.
That's
Government will put up 50% and the buyer. And
yes.
so social housing is much better now in Gibraltar.
Well,
although there's still a housing problem, it's nothing compared to what it used to be. And coupled with that, because of the development of the finance centre, with the world centre of a lot of gaming companies and whatever.
Right. Yes.
But all the wealth of the economy has developed, with also property development and all that, has enabled one of the best educational systems in Europe, in the sense that if you get a place at university in England, the government will pay for it. Your fees and accommodation. I think the few countries in Europe who are so generous, perhaps Finland, I think, or the Nordic countries, or
right, of course. Yes,
so we now have a very young, highly trained, population.
Yes,
which can find work in a lot of these finance companies or gaming companies. And
yes, I have some friends who work I have some friends who work in Gibraltar in the gaming companies.
So Gibraltar has changed a lot.
It's quite dynamic.
It changed a lot.
Yes, absolutely. I think it was.
Although now a lot of people are questioning the model, because all these high-rise buildings which keep going up, the Gibraltar government probably needs money to come into the rock to, pay off their debts, is arousing quite a lot of antagonism in Gibraltar, that, we're just partly destroying the environment which
absolutely.
we live with. No?
But
Tarifa has also changed for the good.
I was going to say, I was just, what do you feel about Tarifa and the change? I mean, you certainly eat better in Tarifa than you did 30 years ago or 20 years ago. There's much more variety. There's more variety of clubs and pubs, and there's a lot more going on. I can remember it was a very sleepy fishing village. Not that I want to say you were eating badly, but there's more variety now. I mean, that's for sure. There's more variety in everything.
Yes.
And when I arrived here, the windsurf was really the only tourism. There was and bums living on the beach in.
There was no tourism, was there?
Well, there was much less. There was much less, and I mean, you notice the difference in August, but not like now. There was tourism, but not on the scale we have it now. You noticed August, but it wasn't the insanity that we have now, where there's no parking, people driving like lunatics, everyone really stressed out.
Yes.
Holidays are very stressful, especially if you have children.
Mm-hmm.
You're meant to be getting away from stress.
Mm.
But I think, all in all, Tarifa's a lot cleaner than it was. It seems to be a lot better organised than it was, certainly. I mean, there's been a lot more building, which...
And it's also must be because of the development of tourism and rental of flats, providing a lot more employment to local people.
And a lot more income, obviously. I mean, obviously, the Tarifeños have become more savvy when it comes to tourism. I mean, it was a bit of an unknown quantity back then, but the government are doing all they can to accommodate tourism, because back in the day we had the fish factory and there's work in the Campo, but even the fishing's taken a hit. So tourism is really the staple that they have to develop, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but that's my opinion. Tell me something. Has Gibraltar, because Tarifa's left it way behind, the COVID impact must have been quite devastating on Gibraltar in terms of the cruise ships that could no longer arrive. And
well, we're very fortunate in Gibraltar that the Gibraltar government was very supportive of businesses and employees, of businesses during COVID.
Right.
And also they more or less forced a sort of rent reduction on businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
On property owners for businesses.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
During the period.
Right.
So we consider ourselves very fortunate. I think it's what happened in England and Ireland, really,
Yeah.
They're very supportive. And I think the La Linea Mayor even sort of thanked the Chief Minister of Gibraltar, Fabian Picardo, for the help for the large, amount of La Linea workers who also got their monthly paycheck.
Oh, wow. The La Linea también. Because
all the cross-border workers were, if they're registered in Gibraltar as working for a business, as most of them were,
right,
they would receive the sort of monthly paycheck.
That's fantastic.
Yes, and the La Linea Mayor went on to thank the Chief Minister of Gibraltar.
Wow! So relations are better. They used to. Because
La Linea has always felt very much tied to, Gibraltar's fortunes.
Well, La Linea,
because when the frontier was closed, it was rather not really supported by Madrid.
Right, of course, yes, and there's a symbiotic relationship between Gibraltar and obviously La Linea.
And now, I think you are, now in Gibraltar, we're hoping that there is this treaty signed between the EU, Spain, England and Gibraltar, which will establish fluidity at the border.
Do you think...
and freedom of movement of people and goods, and take away that dreadful, cranky frontier which has existed for so long.
Do you think there's a possibility that they will remove the frontier?
Yes, I think there's a good possibility of the deal, I think.
Really?
Because there's a realism
talking about it.
There's a realism in Madrid that Gibraltar's economy is a sort of powerhouse potentially for for the whole Campo area.
Of course,
and that can go improve even more, and that prosperity can also spread particularly to La Linea and San Roque, Algeciras. And they want to, I think, like the Gibraltar government and the British government, come to sort of an agreement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Gibraltarians, certainly, a lot of who spend most of their spending money at weekends in Spain, or some own properties in Spain,
yes, of course.
Want to be able to continue to enjoy them.
Well, absolutely. And I think, obviously, the border's a pain in the neck, because I've crossing it and waiting, queuing in cars. But like I was saying before, there's a symbiotic relationship, because without Gibraltar, La Linea would have real problems in terms of employment. But also, without La Linea, Gibraltar would have a terrible problem with a lack of employees. They rely on one another, which...
we know rely tremendously. Certainly the hospitality sector, the care workers.
How many people, for example?
But they're also graduates, from all over Spain who you suddenly maybe walking across the frontier, you talk to them and they're maybe from the north of Spain and they're working in a gaming company, and someone speak excellent English, and they've got a degree and whatever. So it's not just...
No, absolutely. It's
not just La Linea or Algeciras.
So you feel... I mean, for instance, Gibraltar always votes to remain within the, if you like, United Kingdom, but it voted overwhelmingly to stay in the European Union, which is a little, almost like a contradiction in terms. But you feel that Gibraltar's future is with close ties to Spain and removing the barriers that exist between the two, between Spain and Gibraltar. As I do, I feel that removing the border would be a big plus for both sides.
Yes. I mean, Franco believed that by closing the border, Gibraltar would, like ripe fruit, would suddenly drop off the tree into Spanish hands.
Right.
But the MOD in the closed border years supported Gibraltar, and sustained us.
I remember.
And by closing the border, they fermented Gibraltar's identity. They made us more aware of who we were as a people with this hostility from Spain. And I think enlightened rulers now realize that's not the way to win over a population.
Well, isn't that what isn't that what the whole European project is about?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's about.
I think we certainly in Gibraltar want this frontier removed and an agreement to be reached with respecting sovereignty issues on both sides and to increase commerce and daily relations.
Absolutely, and I obviously I'm absolutely 100% with you on this, and I feel it's.
And one of the consequences of the closed border years, that's unfortunately, for political identity reasons, Spanish was downgraded as a subject to be taught. So, my generation, which was brought up being bilingual, is probably the last generation in Gibraltar. Now we have a young generation who don't speak Spanish in Gibraltar.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
And our even own language, which is Llanito, switching from English to Spanish and back and forth, is almost under threat. But but I think the Gibraltar government's now aware of that speaking Spanish and promoting the speaking of Spanish in Malta doesn't make us any more sort of Spanish, in the process, because English has been sufficiently now taught and developed within that,
Yes. Well, I think we'll end it there. Y vamos a tomar unos drinks, ¿no?
Right. Una copa.
Vamos a tomar unos drinks.
When I took over the Biff coffee roasting company and wine distribution company, my main achievement was setting up this coffee shop restaurant in Irish Town in the old coffee packaging warehouse,
right? And
it's become one of the iconic sort of
absolutely
businesses in Gibraltar as a coffee shop restaurant.
Yeah,
and we also contributed a lot to local culture with 30 years of art exhibitions, theatre and poetry readings.
I've been to poetry readings. I've been to exhibitions of art. I've been to music, and also. Actors as well doing stage play.
Yes. The famous watercolorist, James Foote.
James Foote,
who was first known in the area here in Tarifa at the Hurricane Hotel.
That's right. Well, send you this video, James.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
That was a real pleasure, Patrick. I'm really glad.
Does you think it's come out okay?
Oh, I don't know. We'll find out later. if you find me hanging from a lamppost.
Oh God! No.
Well, that was. I'd like to give our thanks to Patrick for coming to visit us, and I'd like to close down this edition of Talk Tarifa. I hope you've enjoyed this show, and hopefully we'll have a lot more. Thanks very much.